What is up, my friends and fellow BusyBees? Within the last 24 hours, I got this question on two different occasions. Once from a friend of mine and another time from somebody who follows me on Instagram. And so I figured this is probably a question that more of you out there have. So today we're going to talk about how to get smells, stenches, and odors out of the furniture, either that you already have in your home and you've noticed that there might be a scent to it that you get. Maybe you get a hand-me-down from a family member or something like that, or the pieces that you are flipping for profit if you have a furniture refinishing business or side hustle. And this is a very common thing, so if you come across a piece that smells a little bit old, a little bit musty, and you turn it away as a result of that, just know that this is a very manageable thing to deal with. There are some circumstances where it is a little bit harder and it will probably require a little bit more effort and time, but for the most part, old furniture is just going to smell a little bit old. Especially wood, it's a porous material, so it tends to not only hold onto, but also absorb and emit smells. And the reality is, whether you notice it or not, every household has their own signature scent. You're probably used to your own because you smell it all day, every day, but just think about walking into somebody's home, whether it's one of your friends or a neighbor or something like that. Whether it's a good or a bad or a neutral scent, there's always a certain scent to people's belongings. Maybe they have leftover scents in the air from what they had for dinner that night. Maybe they have pets or kids that help to contribute in a good or bad way to this overall smell. So it's not uncommon for furniture to develop a smell over time. And if it's furniture that's holding certain items that also have scents, for example, underneath our TV on the main floor, we have a little entertainment unit, buffet, whatever you want to call it. And I keep all of my candles in one of the two shelves that are in that unit. And better believe when you open up those doors, you get an overwhelming scent of basically a mix of every sweet fall scent that has ever existed, all mixed together all at once. And if you're going to be refinishing this furniture and selling it to somebody, your goal here is to remove the odor to the point that the client is not reminded of the fact that this piece of furniture used to live in someone else's home. And if there ends up being a smell remaining, they're going to figure it out pretty quickly because once it gets into their vehicle, into that confined space, that's when it's really going to start to become glaringly obvious that there is a smell. So the first thing that you're going to want to do for a piece of furniture that is holding onto a smell like this is to open it all up because you want to air it out. Often what's needed for musty furniture is just an air out because it's been sitting, it's been cooped up for years, and it just hasn't had time to breathe. So open up all the doors, take out any drawers there may be, and as much as you can, disassemble it so that every part is being exposed to air. I recommend doing this either outside or in your garage, somewhere that you're going to have fresh, moving air that can really get in there and air it out. And sometimes that's honestly all that's needed. But in today's episode, I'm going to jump into some ideas and different approaches that you can take for the more lasting pesky scents that may exist. But just on the topic of pieces of furniture that have scents to them, this is something that I definitely try and avoid for the most part when I am choosing a piece of furniture to refinish, to flip, ideally as quick as possible with as little effort as possible is always the goal. And because it kind of depends on the scent and it kind of depends on the piece of furniture, anytime that I come across an odor like that, I'm probably gonna pass on it, to be honest, if it's something that smells like it's gonna linger quite a bit. Because the reality is the added time and effort that may be needed to be involved for the piece is going to cut down on my profits because it's going to require more time, more energy, more products potentially. So 9 times out of 10, I'm going to just say no to that piece unless it's a really amazing find, or of course if it's a client's piece that I am doing a custom project on. And so whenever you're buying a piece of furniture to flip, whether you're at the thrift store or you're on Marketplace looking for a piece and you go to pick it up, I highly recommend not skipping the step of getting down low, up and personal with that piece of furniture and giving it a big whiff to see if there is anything noticeable or noticeably smelly about that piece. because again, that may be something that goes onto your checklist of whether or not it is something that's going to be worthwhile for you to take on. Like I said, a lot of these scents, these odors, are easy to tackle, when you smell a bit of mustiness, or it just smells like somebody's personal scent that's just kind of lingering in there. But the things that I have come across that are definitely harder to tackle are things like urine, particularly cat pee. There's a certain scent to it, you can kind of tell when you smell it, and cigarette smoke. Those, though not impossible to get rid of, are definitely the ones that will require a little bit of trial and error and probably some added products. So with all pieces, whether or not there's a smell present or not, a thorough cleaning is needed first and foremost. So our approach to these pieces we're trying to get rid of these stenches from is to do the same. And paying particularly close attention to the cleaning if you know that there is a scent. Again, make sure that piece is taken apart fully, and you're going to want to clean the inside, the outside, the drawers, the bottoms, the underneaths, all the spots that exist on that piece. You're going to want to give it a really thorough cleaning and then let it sit, take it apart to dry thoroughly. Again, I recommend doing this in the garage or outside just so you get that fresh air and that moving air to ideally dry it out, and hopefully the scent will be gone by that point. If you are still detecting a scent after it has been thoroughly dried and cleaned, you can go in with something to neutralize that smell. So I would recommend starting with white vinegar, which has a very neutralizing scent. So you mix that at a 50-50 ratio with water and white vinegar, and you can either just dip your cloth right into that mixture or put in a spray bottle, and again, basically just clean the piece with that mixture and let it sit to dry. That will hopefully neutralize any odors that are there. Another option for this is using a vodka that has a high alcohol content. I haven't done this myself, but I've heard it works, and also works on things like stinky shoes and fabrics that have a scent that is lingering, and basically the alcohol just fast dries and absorbs that smell or neutralizes it, whatever. So that's an option to attempt. I've also seen people recommend using bleach, a 50-50 mix with bleach and water. However, if you intend on refinishing this piece and staining it or keeping it raw wood, then I wouldn't advise you to use bleach, because that's going to create some patchiness and lighten the wood more than it is currently. So if you're going to paint it and it's more accessible to you than using vinegar or vodka, go for it. But if you intend on having it be a raw wood or a stained finish, then leave the bleach alone. And if the scent is coming from a piece of furniture that is made of wood, another option is to just give everything a quick sanding. Again, inside, outside, drawers, drawer bottoms, everything, use a, mid to higher grit sandpaper. I'd say maybe somewhere between, 180 and 200 would probably be best, because you want to take away a bit of that top surface and sand the finish down a little bit to help freshen up the wood and just allow it to breathe a bit. Then wipe away any of that sanding dust that may be lingering, maybe give it a wipe down with some water again, and then let it dry thoroughly, and then go back to it and see if that helped to mask or resolve the issue. Another approach that you can take is to add a deodorizer into the piece that will help to absorb the scent rather than just cover it up or remove it in a different way. Different deodorizer options are coffee beans. You could use a bowl of vinegar. I've heard people use kitty litter. You can use baking soda or charcoal. You can just place those items, whatever one you choose, into a bowl, or you can sprinkle it directly onto the surface if you want. Things like baking soda, sometimes having it on the surface is a little bit more absorbent than just having it in a bowl in the drawer or something like that. And for those deodorizers, because you're wanting it to really get in there and experience the scent and deodorize it, I would recommend putting the drawers back into the piece and closing it up while you have those bowls of those products in the piece, and keep them in there for multiple days. The longer, the better, honestly. Again, like I said, that's going to add to your timeline for flipping this piece, so keep that in mind when you are choosing them, that it could take multiple days of trying different things out to get rid of this scent. Another way to add a bit of a deodorizer to absorb that smell and also add a more palatable scent into the piece is to put a dryer sheet or multiple dryer sheets into it. They usually have like a clean linen scent, or I don't know, maybe they have more dynamic scents now. I don't really buy them often. But again, another approach to getting that smell out. And you can even, if you prefer a certain scent, add your own essential oils onto that. Put a couple drops on each dryer sheet and then put it in there as a way to deodorize with the sheet, but add the nice scent of, something like lemon or something fresh. I find is a nice scent to add back in to make it smell clean while you're taking those negative or less enjoyed scents out of it. And if you need something a little bit more harsh and a little bit more surefire way to remove that odor from the furniture piece, you can use an odor blocker basically to cover up the smell and keep it contained under the products. So using a shellac-based primer like Zinsser Bin will do this. Not an ideal thing to have to do if you are going to be staining the piece. Sometimes, we have to adapt with our plan of what we go in wanting to do to the pieces. And if it's something like cigarette smoke or like a lot of cat pee in there, you're probably going to have to do this. So it sucks. It adds obviously more cost to your project, but you know that it's going to hold that odor and any stains from coming through at least, right? Like sometimes there's only so many things we can do. And when I'm working on pieces to sell, although I'm of course trying to eliminate any scents that may exist, rather than just aiming to have no scent or a neutral scent in my pieces, I want to keep it smelling good. I want it to be nice and fresh and seem new and like it's not a piece of furniture that was saved from ending up in the landfill, right? So I usually use a furniture salve to give it a good smell. I rub this into the inside of the body of the piece if it's wood. I'll rub it into the drawer bottoms, the drawer sides, and I'll use typically a chalk paint brush for this, my Annie Sloan one, or just blue shop towels to rub that into the wood. Not only is it going to give it a nice scent, but it's also going to moisturize that wood, so it makes it look much more fresh, much more moisturized, and ultimately newer. Currently, I'm using Howard's Feed-In Wax, which is an orange-scented furniture moisturizer, furniture salve, whatever you want to call it. I used to use the Dixie Belle's Big Mama's Butta, and I think the color or the scent was Citrus Grove. And again, both of those are like an orange scent, but it's a light orange. Lemon's really nice too, but I find that adding any particular scents back into it other than something fresh or clean smelling is like a little bit kind of presumptuous that like any random person is also going to enjoy that scent. So keep that in mind because there's a couple of the Big Mama's Buttas that I have that are in other scents, like flannel, for example, that is really nice smelling. It kind of smells like Abercrombie to me. If you know, you know. But it is very overwhelming and it doesn't fade as much as the citrus ones I find. And not only the fact that you don't know if the potential buyer is going to enjoy that particular scent, but also be mindful that some people have sensitivities to certain scents, or they just experience scents a lot more than the average person. So when I'm going to be selling a piece that I have done this to, I'll always make sure to highlight that in the description that, a furniture salve has been added to the wood drawers to freshen them up and moisturize them or whatever. That has a light orange scent. Like I'll highlight that in the description so that potential buyers will be aware of that fact. I honestly don't think I've ever come across anyone that it's been an issue, but just in the off chance, I don't want anyone to be surprised in a negative way. And if I am working on a piece that I would typically add that into for a client, for custom work, then I'll always shoot them a message ahead of time and make sure that that's okay with them. Again, it's never been an issue, but just want to be mindful of that. Better to be safe than sorry, right? And something you may not know about me, I love little motivational messages. They always get me fired up, and I keep a running list of ones that are especially catchy or speak to me in the Notes app on my phone. So I end every podcast episode with one that I've noted down over the years in hopes that you leave our time here each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to take on whatever comes your way this week. So this week's Mel's motivational message is very corny and I don't really care. It is, nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. I know, okay. We're getting to like slim pickings on the list for certain topics. But I do think it's a good one to keep in mind because ultimately, like it says, nothing is impossible. As long as you put your mind to it, you do your proper research. If we're talking about getting a scent out of your furniture, it's all about trial and error and being able to adapt. Like I said, you might have plans for this piece to do a certain thing, to sand it all down and stain it, but when it comes down to it, you realize that there is just that pesky odor in there that is not going to go away. The reality is, if it's a matter of choosing to have a stinky piece that people are not probably going to want in their home that looks really beautiful, versus adapting and having a beautiful painted piece in their home that smells great or smells not at all, but the vision that you had for that piece in your head is now dead and in the dust. You're going to want to go for that second option because at the end of the day, we're looking for a sale or we're looking to enjoy the piece that we have in our home that we're trying to eliminate the scent from. So just try to remind yourself of those goals, of those intentions. And remember to persevere because again, it might take a few different strategies and things that you have to try first before it ends up working or you end up deciding to just paint the piece or whatever. But just remember that nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. All right, that's it for now. I appreciate your time and I will catch you guys next week. Good luck getting those smells out.